I will introduce myself. My name is Kristina Duchak. I'm one of the co-founders of Links to Market. And I'd like to start with a bit of a time traveling. And here, luckily, I have people who will be my witnesses in this time travel, so you will know that I'm not lying. I'd like to take you back to September 2021, Berlin. The lockdown is still on, and just 10 days before we need to open the doors to our very first PharmaSynergyOTC, we still don't know whether it's possible because the lockdown is still on. So we read the news, we fill out forms, we contact the hotel, we have this endless to and fro, open, not open, open, not open. We signed the contract, we paid money, so everything is done. We are unstoppable. And luckily, you know, and there is some sort of destiny in it, because if you really want something, it happens. I believe in it wholeheartedly. So we managed to have our very first PharmaSynergyOTC back in Berlin in 2021, 2 weeks after the lockdown was lifted. So why did we do that? Why? Because you wanted it. Because we had so many people. When we started PharmaSynergy, we had a mix of RX, so prescription, OTC, biosimilars. It worked first, but then we heard the voices saying, please, please, let us have our own space, make it meaningful for us. And that's the only reason why we have done it. We always listen to you, and I want you to keep it very close to your heart, because we are happy to walk a very long way. We have an amazing team, energetic and very unstoppable. Just tell us we want it, and we'll make it happen. Why do we do that? Because we are constantly getting inspired by you. You are the people who are traveling around the world. You are the people who drive the growth, who bring those new ideas, who meet, do the handshakes. And so we were not surprised when, you know, despite COVID and everything, half of you said, you know, I cannot do Zoom meetings anymore. I just need to see people. I really need this, you know, handshake. I don't care about COVID. Some people, of course, said, no, no, thank you so much. I already had it twice. I'll skip it this time. But fast forward to today, we are over 200 people from Albania to Australia. It's all because of you, once again, because you made it happen. You came because you want to drive your business. We have 1,100 meetings lined up between today and tomorrow. And I think we also have to celebrate the 28% growth year on year comparing to last year. So with that, what we also try to give you is a program, and the program is built around your needs. So business development needs are very broad, ranging from understanding the trends, the shifts that are happening, understanding your consumer, understanding where we are heading overall, moving on to financing, moving on to M&A opportunities, the new acquisitions, how are they structured, and of course, the new product launches, a very tricky one, as we know ourselves as well. Timing is important. And e-commerce, which is an absolute shift maker and going to change, and is already changing the industry across all continents. And finally, the geographic expansion, which I think is constantly on the lookout of where else can you build new opportunities, where else can you build new synergies. So over the next 2 days, we will do all of it, the partnering, the content, the handshakes, and of course tonight we're also going to do some partying, because you cannot work hard and skip the play bit, right? So come in the evening, it's just 10 minutes walk. Hopefully it's going to stop raining, because it has to, and we have already asked for it as well, so don't worry, it's going to be sorted. And So enjoy all of it, and with that, I'd like to introduce our moderator. I have to say we are very, very lucky because the program, the way it's structured, it's always very hard to find somebody who knows it all, and we are thrilled to introduce Philip Gorsch, who is not only a partner at LAK Consultant, but also the head of Health and Beauty. So he has guided hundreds of companies through growth, innovation, through investment decisions, and will help us frame the conversations ahead. We couldn't have asked for stronger credentials to steer us through this journey. Thank you very much, and over to you, Philip.
Thank you, Christina. I'm pleased to be there. Welcome, everyone. I think we have a lot to cover in the next 2 days, a lot of exciting topics. And this morning, we're going to start by unpacking some of the trends in the space. And we are going to start with Thomas, who is the VP at IQVIA Consumer Health. We'll start by unpacking some of the big trends in the self-care market. So Thomas, if you want to start.
Okay, so thank you, George, and buongiorno. And that was all my Italian, sorry for that. I have prepared a 30-minute presentation, and I got 15 minutes, so it's like my daughter doing a podcast at double speed. So bear with me, but you will get all the slides afterwards. So if I'm skipping through some of the content very quickly, forgive me. I think most of you know IQVIA. We are now more than 90,000 people, and I describe us typically as we are like a big OTC company or a big pharma company, but we do not have our own products. But we can help you commercialize it, we can help you develop your products, etc. And you see some of the facts here. And I think what is important for us is that we are neutral, so we are, let's say, giving hopefully a neutral perspective on what is happening in this amazing industry. And moving on, no IQVIA presentation without numbers, because obviously data is at the heart of what we are doing. And I'm bringing here some of the key trends to you, what we see in the global OTC market. You can see that we are talking about a almost 300 billion euro industry with a solid growth of 4.2% over the last 12 months, but predominantly on a value basis. So from a volume perspective, we are basically not growing anymore. And you can also see on the bottom left of the slide that the cough, cold, respiratory category remains the dominant one with a 22.4% share. And EMEA, so Europe predominantly, where we are today, is continuing to be the largest region in the global OTC sector. But you can also see on this slide that our growth has declined a little bit. So we came from almost 12% growth following the, let's say, recovery from the COVID pandemic and also, let's say, a time of very high inflation. And this has now normalized, and we are now more in the 4% growth ranges. And I will finish my presentation with the forecast for the next year, so you will also see how we are predicting how the growth will continue in the global OTC market. This is the split across the different categories, and I will highlight that the vitamins, minerals, supplements category is the fastest growing globally, and that is definitely something, and we will have Amazon on stage after me, right? So there are some players who are pushing for that, but we are also having some other industry trends which are leading to this amazing growth in this prevention category. And when you think about the regional split, as I already mentioned, the EMEA region is growing very healthy, 7.7%. We will never reach Latin America because this is a high inflation region, obviously. So some of the value growth which we are experiencing here is driven by high price increases. But you can also see that, for example, North America is a little bit declining because there is less consumer demand at the moment. And when we look at the top European OTC companies, I'm not going through all the different players. Some of them are in the room, so I will be very careful what I'm saying. But two things that I would like to highlight. One is that we have two relatively new players on the chart with Stada and Cooper. Those are two companies who have done extensive acquisitions and in-licensing. And I think this is also a link to this lovely conference because it's all about making deals and maybe extending your product portfolio. And secondly, when you look at the right-hand side of the slide, there are only 2 companies out of the top 10 who are able to beat the average growth in Europe, which also means that a lot of the growth is happening at smaller companies in Europe. And you know that we in Europe, we are a region where we have a lot of local heroes, a lot of very strong local players who are sometimes experiencing higher growth rates than the large corporations. Now, these are the 7 trends that we are foreseeing which will shake up the industry or which will drive the industry over the next couple of months and years. I do not have the time to go through all of them, but I will pick some of these trends and go into a little bit more detail. One is definitely e-commerce, which is my favorite topic, maybe because I'm from Germany and because e-commerce is so important for us. Secondly, I will speak a little bit about M&A, and I will also speak a little bit about innovation. So starting with e-commerce, what you see here on the right-hand side of the slide in light blue is the growth rate in the online pharmacies or e-pharmacies compared to the brick-and-mortar pharmacies in dark blue. And you can see that basically the online channel is growing significantly faster in almost every European country or every country that we have here on the map compared to the brick-and-mortar pharmacies. Yeah? On the left-hand side of the slide, you already see the share of the online pharmacies compared to the stationary pharmacies. And you can see Germany is obviously on the top of the list with more than 20%, but you can also see that other companies or other countries are also moving into the same direction. Now, we have seen in the previous chart that vitamins, minerals, supplements are the key growth driver for the OTC industry at the moment. And we believe that it is also linked to some extent to a new trend which is coming up, which is called longevity. Now, what does longevity mean to you? I think you've all heard the word, and I think there are many, many buzzwords associated to longevity, from epigenetics, senolytics, digital tracking, transhumanism, and all these types of buzzwords. And I would like to give you a little bit context, what is longevity and why we believe it is important for our industry going forward. Number one is, when I start clockwise at 12 o'clock in this slide, we are talking about a pretty new or pretty young target group who is really focusing on longevity. Yeah? And I will have a different slide later on describing the difference to healthy aging. Healthy aging is something that I'm taking care of. So I'm old. I try to age in a healthy way, but longevity is very much a movement of very young people who try to prevent themselves from suffering from age-related diseases later in their life. Yeah? So it's a pretty young target group. Second is, it has a lot to do with health awareness and frequently checking health parameters and biomarkers. So who in the room is wearing a smartwatch or a fitness tracker or something? Hands up, please. Okay, so more than 50%, I would say. And I think it's quite normal for us to continuously track some health parameters, even with the Oura Ring or any other innovation which is out there, which tells us in the morning how good or bad our sleep was. Yeah. Now, it has a lot to do with technical, so variables, and what I just described. It has had a lot of focus on prevention, and obviously healthy nutrition plays a very important role in this movement. Yeah. This is the difference for you later on between longevity and healthy aging. Again, you will get the slides. You don't need to take photos, because I see many people with their cameras, no problem. And longevity is also part of a broader wellness industry. There is a lot of money spent from consumers on their wellness, well-being, health, and their prevention. And you can see here some of these aspects. So globally, we believe it's about a $6 trillion industry. And I think it would be nice if some of that money would go into vitamins, minerals, supplements, for example. And it's already happening. We have picked here 4 substances, 4 molecules, which are connected to longevity in some form and shape. So from astaxanthin, spermidine, omega-3, magnesium. These are sometimes pretty new substances, sometimes well-known substances from the past, like magnesium, but who are now getting into new indications and into new, let's say, areas like cardiovascular diseases, anti-inflammatory, blood sugar regulation, cell protection, skin and anti-aging. And this heat map tells you a little bit which substance is related or corresponds to which indication. Yeah? And when you want to look into longevity, I can recommend there are many, many books out there from some gurus and maybe not so gurus who can tell you about longevity, and here are some recommendations. And I think if we want to understand a movement, it's sometimes interesting to look into the extremes. So this is someone who sold his Silicon Valley investment a couple of years ago, is now a billionaire, and basically spends all his money in longevity treatments. Yeah? So this person takes about 40 supplements each day. So maybe the ideal consumer for the OTC industry, but he also undergoes many, many other different treatments. Yeah? And he is having his own blog where he is publishing all the results. You can see on the photo on the bottom that not all these experiments are going well. Yeah, but for example, he's also taking blood infusions from his own son. Yeah, you can see his son on the picture on the right. The son is the one in the background. So the son is at the age of 19, I believe, and the biological age, which he is frequently measuring, is 17.5. So he's younger than his own son, yeah, if he believes his own treatments. And you can see some of the experimental treatments that he's undergoing frequently on the left-hand side of the slide. Yeah? I will not recommend everything, but these gurus show us a little bit where this movement is going. And I can tell you an anecdote. I'm living in a small town close to Frankfurt in Germany, and just recently a shop opened called Dr. Frost. So what is Dr. Frost offering? You can go inside a chamber at minus 85 degrees for about 4 minutes and get your body really cooled down to prevent inflammation processes. Yeah? You can also take a hyperbaric oxygen chamber treatment there. Yeah? It's 149 euros for each treatment. So, not sure if I recommend it, but these are all the types of things that this person is having at home. I mean, he's a billionaire, he can spend all his money doing this, but it's becoming more and more a movement where more and more people are, let's say, really investing money into it. Yeah? So let's move on. This is another example, Sim Land. I met him a couple of weeks ago. He is also a YouTuber, and he's, also promoting this type of longevity lifestyle. The interesting thing is that these people are acting on a very scientific basis. Yeah? So when you look at these YouTube blogs, for example, it's all about clinical studies, it's about bioparameters. These guys are frequently tracking their health. And I'm not sure if I will look like that if I undergo the same program, but it's a 10-week program for $1,000. Yeah. I spoke already about variables and the quantified self movement. So let me take you through maybe some of the amazing, let's say, innovations that we have seen over the last couple of months and years. I think last year we had Melissa here on stage from the Nourished company who educated us about her 3D printed gummies. Yeah, that's what you see on the top left. It's still an amazing concept, and I've been in touch with her. She's still very convinced that we will have a 3D printer in every pharmacy in Europe over the next 10 years. Yeah. The other thing is a very interesting collaboration between Nespresso and an OTC company, so you can now get your daily shot of collagen in your morning Nespresso. Yeah, so it's an interesting collaboration, and it goes in the same direction. You can have a look at the WhatsApp company. So these are patches which are, let's say, releasing the vitamins, minerals through a patch. So for those people who have difficulties taking a pill, for example, this can be an interesting solution. And then we have solutions like Randox Health, and there are a myriad out there at the moment. It's basically you are testing something, you test your microbiome, or you do maybe a genetic test or a blood test, and then you receive your individual supplement afterwards to, let's say, match your personal profile. So these are the levels of personalization where we see more and more solutions coming into the market. Now, finally, I mean, we are at an M&A conference. Some of this innovation is coming through acquisitions. And we have seen a lot of deals over the last couple of years, not so many transformational deals like the one on the left. I mean, these are all happened a couple of years ago. But obviously, recently, we have seen all these spin-outs of OTC companies from their large pharma mothership. And we are seeing more and more focused deals like what Cooper is doing, for example, what I mentioned earlier. Yeah. How can we support from an IQVIA perspective? I mean, we have all that data, we have all that knowledge, hopefully. So we can obviously help you specifically in the commercial due diligence. And we have supported about 20 commercial due diligence last year, just in the OTC sector in Europe. In summary, and I promised to give you a little outlook, and this is how we are projecting the global OTC market to grow. And you can see we are expecting higher growth rates. And you can also see that, what I mentioned earlier, we see specifically at higher growth in vitamins, minerals, supplements, but also in digestive treatments. Yeah, we believe those are the whole probiotics category will continue to grow faster than average with companies like Allergosan and others in Europe. Now, there is one downside. This slide is 1 year old. And we typically provide these forecasts on a yearly basis, and it would have been time for us to update the slide. But why did we not do it? Because there are so many things happening in the industry. Yeah, and I'm not going through the details, but you have all heard about the tariffs. And basically, we can update this slide every week because the tariffs are changing every week. And when you look at the latest news, what Donald Trump announced, I think 2 days ago, where he said that paracetamol might be associated with autism, and Tylenol might be a very problematic drug, and the impact is that the share price of Kenvue dropped by 7% on 1 day. So you can see these things are very hard to predict for our team. So take all our forecasts with a word of caution. But I'm happy to take questions afterwards. Also, you can schedule a one-to-one meeting if you want to go into one aspect a little bit deeper. Good. Thank you for your attention. And I'm handing over to the next presenter, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Now I'm pleased to welcome Raluca, who is the head of retail media and performance at Amazon Ads in France. So we are going to cover e-commerce customer journey, in particular on Amazon, and I think you are going to share with us some tips on how to be successful. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you. Oh, should I bring this down? Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me. I think this is the first time that Amazon attends one of your events. So I'm deeply honored to be able to share with all of you some of the healthcare consumer insights we've analyzed on our end, and then walk you through some of our Amazon advertising solutions that could help your brands thrive, and especially could help your brands be more competitive or gain some of the more weight in the business. So when we talk about Amazon, I do believe that most of you think of Amazon like a pure retailer. You go on Amazon only to buy things, to potentially discover. But today, Amazon is much more than that, and we engage with our consumers on a daily basis through through a diverse supply, through devices, like for example, Alexa. You wake up in the morning, you would interact with Alexa, and then you would take the train to work, you would listen to Amazon Music. You come back home, maybe you will go on Twitch with your friends, or you will just sit with your family in front of Prime Video and watch a movie. And then eventually, through all these exposures, you will go to Amazon, look for the products you might have been exposed to, and you will potentially purchase later on. So back in 2014, we've launched sponsored ads. That is keyword targeting. It was available on Amazon, and since then we've made tremendous progress in terms of how we can further support brands overall to be present where their consumers are. So these are some of the examples of what Amazon is today, and we're not stopping there. Today we talk about e-commerce, we talk about retail media, but in the end it's about omnichannel. So through Amazon solutions, we will be able to interact with your potential shoppers every day, every hour even. So I would like to share and start with actually sharing some of the findings in OTC overall, but VMS as well, and how these two, let's say, sub-vertical, subcategories behave on Amazon, and what the consumer path is. Sorry, here. So what we know is roughly 2/3 of OTC shoppers are gathering information online before purchasing. We see this trend across a lot of categories, but it's interesting to see healthcare as an emerging category on Amazon. And numbers, these are numbers from the US specifically. We see that there was a 20% increase in keyword searches in 2024 compared to previous year. And in terms of sales, we've had roughly 70% increase since 2017. So we do see the weight or the importance of Amazon in the marketing strategies of the different OTC and VMS brands. Why is that? Well, it's simply because convenience. Amazon is oftentimes perceived as a one-stop shop, meaning that I go to Amazon and I know that I will potentially find what I'm looking for. Obviously, in the OTC sector in Europe, there are more restrictions than in the US. So OTC products like pain relief, they are available in US and Canada and the UK, in Germany as well, and not so much in the other locales. But overall, if we look at healthcare in general, Amazon becomes the go-to place. So Amazon has, obviously, as I was mentioning, a strong stake in this consumer journey. with studies from Kantar showing that a purchase was ignited upon exposure to Amazon, or maybe someone bought a new brand because they did see it on Amazon. And when I say Amazon, it's not just the website, but also the other levers I mentioned before, like sorry, Twitch or Prime or music, etc. So this is, sorry. Oh, I stopped it. Advertising, it's interesting. When we look at the path to purchase on Amazon, we see that consumers would go to Amazon because they have a need, but advertising, it's surprising potentially for some of you to see that Amazon had a stake in this consumer journey. Because once someone is exposed to our different solutions, we would get signals. And we would then be able to identify audiences that are relevant. When we looked deeper into the purchase behavior, we noticed, it's a study run by Kantar, half of the OTC consumers are actually open, so they haven't made up their mind. So this is where the opportunity lies, in the sense that it's very important to start being top of mind, because consumers oftentimes are open to changing their loyalty to a certain brand. And then when we look more into details regarding OTC shoppers compared to vitamin supplements and minerals and supplements of VMS, OTC consumers actually are more inclined to switch to a different brand. For VMS, there's a higher level of loyalty. But OTC shoppers, they do shop more often than VMS. And you see here on the slide the number of purchases. So for VMS, it's less. It might be tied to actually packaging and the needs. But then when we look at what they're actually exploring, we see an opportunity to cross-sell, meaning that we would identify signals saying that a consumer bought or was interested in purchasing a pain relief product, and then we can then encourage them through the signals to explore other products in the VMS sector. So in a nutshell, based on these learnings, we understand that consumers in healthcare are usually open. They are not necessarily loyal to a certain brand, which means that we need to be top of mind. We need to have marketing strategies that actually engage with potential consumers throughout their journey, whether it's online and offline or both. Because we're talking about retail media today, but we have to think omni-channel. So with Amazon ads, so I'm not speaking on behalf of all Amazon divisions. I'm coming from Amazon advertising. I've been with the team for 10 years, and I've seen this change from Amazon as a pure retailer to Amazon as a digital player in the media industry. So I'm very proud to be able to show you what the innovations have been delivered in the past years and how we can help your brands to increase brand equity. So based on everything I've shared and Thomas as well in the trends, I think we all agree that when we talk about advertising and how your brands run their marketing strategies, full funnel is key. So when we talk about full funnel, we would go from awareness strategies, so recruitment. We would go through consideration. How do we get consumers to be interested in your products? And then ultimately, the goal is to drive conversions and loyalty, brand loyalty. We know that for 82%, brand choice is important. But when we talk about full funnel, it's easier said than done, actually. We know that today the consumer journey is very fragmented. It's not linear. We get exposed to so much content throughout the day, online and offline. And ultimately, we would convert on Amazon or in the pharmacy or in other places. But studies show that only 9% of consumers see a relevant ad, which means that potentially your marketing budgets are not properly thought through, let's say, which means that measurement is key. So when you activate a branding campaign or a marketing campaign in general, marketers, 60% of the marketers actually say they have trouble in measuring the impact of each of their marketing activities. So to us, there are three key elements that help brands. One is reach, maximizing the reach. One is being relevant, and also driving measurable impact. I will go through the three of each. So when we talk about Amazon, we have a plethora of supports, different formats, different devices, and on top of that, we do partner up with premium publishers, whether it's display, whether it's video, whether it's streaming TV, on the right. And throughout the consumer journey, we have different solutions that help brands achieve their marketing goals. So if we're looking at awareness at recruitment, we would talk about video and audio and live streaming like Twitch. We would talk about device ads, but we'd also talk about display on and off Amazon. And healthcare shoppers actually do crave entertainment. 71% of the surveyed consumers, they say that they believe good advertising looks and sounds like a piece of entertainment. We could think of other product types that would be more relevant, but it's surprising to see that at the end of the day, the consumer is still a consumer. And for example, in healthcare, consumers would spend almost 2 hours streaming. And when we say streaming, we say Prime Video, we would say other streaming services. So being there where they are, it becomes key in engaging with them. Now, obviously, we want to be there where the consumers are. Ultimately, we want to go a bit down the funnel. We want to drive traffic, right? You all, I assume, want to drive ultimately sales. So with Amazon Ads, again, we have solutions that actually respond to this need. And when we drive traffic, the goal is to drive action, increase sales, and grow your business. It's going to be through search, it's going to be through the display ads, and different strategies that would drive loyalty in the end. So this is about the reach and how Amazon is able to respond to this need. But one important factor to take into account and considered as a key pillar of success on our end is relevance. So it's important to understand who your consumers are. Through our signals, we are able to create audiences that are relevant for your marketing strategies. So we would look into, for example, what we call in-market audiences. Those are really consumers that have, for example, browsed for vitamins in the past 30 days. Then we would look into a broader category with lifestyle audiences, people who would, look for healthcare and fitness products in the past year. So they are considered as very relevant audiences for your strategies. And then we can go into more customized types of audiences through the signals, build custom audiences, and even brand audiences that you can engage with throughout your campaigns. And then finally, all this isn't worth much if we're not able to actually measure the impact of all these activations. When we partner with the different healthcare advertisers, we go backwards from their business needs, and then we go deeper into what we can implement as an overall strategy to help them increase their brand equity. So planning is key, and then we would obviously activate. And finally, measurement is what matters in the end. Did we manage to showcase the contribution of each of these marketing levers in the final purchase? Did we manage to engage with the right audiences? Have we used the marketing budget effectively? Luckily, we do have, yes. Maybe some of you heard about Amazon Marketing Cloud. So it's our clean room, which allows us to gain a full funnel overview of what the impact is of each solution, how the audiences behaved in this whole consumer path. We would use these signals to streamline and adapt the marketing strategy. And this is something that we always recommend, is to check performance and to verify the results of your Amazon advertising campaigns through trusted integrations. So, for example, we would have impact on offline sales, we would have impact on brand in general, brand image, etc. And finally, I can give you an example. It works. This is an example from Germany. It's a healthcare brand. Their challenge was they didn't know what the impact of a Prime Video campaign would be. They were a bit reluctant, so they've run some tests, and they decided to implement a full funnel strategy. What they did was to start with Prime Video ads to drive engagement and awareness to their product. Then they went down the funnel to drive consideration. They would run display banners on and off Amazon. And finally, they would re-engage with sponsored ads, so sponsor product, like the keywords. What they did was to also implement a brand lift study. And conjointly with AMC, we managed to identify the path to purchase, the contribution of each lever, and the impact it had on their goals. So ultimately, what we've noticed with this specific brand, a 67% increase in purchase rates, and over 300% increase in visits on their product pages. And this is one of those examples where we might think that sponsored ads is enough, like keyword targeting, that should be enough. But when we look at the bigger picture, we have to connect the dots to understand contribution of each lever, measurement, audiences, and then refine future strategies. So I will finish with 3 questions for you and your marketing teams, I assume. This is food for thought more of, but what is to keep in mind is 3 words: reach, relevancy, and measurement. And if you would like to connect later on to discuss more in details, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. So basically, you are the reason why I'm getting so many protein and creatine ads on my Amazon feed, right? It works. I bought some protein recently. Now let's move to Magda. Magda is a research consultant at Euromonitor International. She's a specialist in health and beauty, and now we are going to unpack some of the big trends in the consumer health industry.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone. As Philip mentioned, today I will be talking to you about top 5 trends in consumer health, but no worries, I will not repeat myself because I know that Thomas has already discussed a lot and Raluca as well, but we will look at it from, this one, sorry. We will look at it from a more consumer perspective, but before we'll kick it off, let me quickly introduce Euromonitor. We are a market global research company providing insights and data on industries, consumers around the world. We've got 16 offices worldwide, and I myself am based in our Düsseldorf office. And as mentioned, we will touch on few most important consumer trends that we believe obviously we all know it, so I am aware of that these trends are nothing new for you, but we will try to look at it from a consumer perspective, meaning that we will look at the consumer surveys that we at Euromonitor conduct, and based on that we will try to give you a closer picture of consumers around the world, how they view these trends and how they actually implement them. Right, so the 5 key trends that we will be discussing today is obviously the gut health, then beauty influence on health, the rise of women's life cycle, men's health and wellness, as well as the rise of novel and on-the-go formats. So let's start with gut health as a health orientation. And as Thomas also mentioned in his presentation, digestive supplements and everything that is related to gut health is actually an important trend. And what do we mean here as a health orientation? Back then, between 2010 and 2017, we saw a huge increase in digestive supplements. After that, the trend was still there, but it was not as dynamic as it used to be back then, so like 15 years ago. But that's why what we are seeing now. So we are seeing that this trend is very much re-emerging. And when you look at the left-hand side of the slide, you will see the results of our consumer survey results. This is done globally. So what we are seeing, that future lower digestive issues is one of the biggest concern across all of the age cohorts across the globe. And what does that mean? Obviously, it means that consumers are very much into everything that is related to gut health. And you also see some of the numbers on the right-hand side of the slide, where we explain the biggest, the most dynamic categories within gut health, as well as the fact that a third of consumers actually is interested in gut health supplements. And that is something to confirm the trend. So looking at this slide, we are seeing that there is a boom in gut health across brands despite rising prices. And this is an US, we've taken US as an example. So we are seeing at Euromonitor, we can track prices as well as we can track the number of SKUs, the number of new brands that are popping up, and here is a quick snapshot of those. So we are seeing that between 2019 and 2024, the number of online SKUs with specific digestive health claims in the US across all of the subcategories like digestive health and probiotics has actually increased. 2023, so the biggest boom. The same with digestive health claim, the number of online brands with specific digestive health. And as we can see on the last chart, even though the prices have been actually increasing, the demand hasn't stopped. So that obviously means that the consumers, even though nowadays in the era of crisis that we all live in, they still do care about that specific part of their health. And I believe that is also something important to carry as a message for companies that actually do focus on digestive health supplements. Now let's move on to beauty's influence on health. And here we will also have some of the survey data related data points. So yeah, looking at the first graph on the left-hand side, we are seeing that beauty supplements sales by region. Obviously, Asia Pacific is the biggest market with China. However, when we look at the growth rate between 2023 and 2024, we are actually see that Asia Pacific has not grown as much. Well, this is mainly related to its maturity, because in Asia Pacific, beauty supplements have been way before then it came to US or Europe in general. So that is why within all of these markets, we are seeing that North America, especially the US, saw the most dynamic growth when it comes to beauty supplements. And looking at the second chart, where we see the composition of genders and age cohorts, we are seeing that females are still consumers who go for beauty supplements more often than men. But when we look at specific age cohorts, we are seeing that males between 30 and 44 globally, they are actually very much interested in taking beauty supplements, and they do that. So again, a conclusion of that would be that the age cohort definitely plays an important role, looking at both females and males between 30 and 44. But at the same time, the age cohort 18 to 29 among women also plays a huge role, and this is very much related also to Raluca mentioned about this digital world and the fact that younger consumers very much track the trends. They are very much more often being online, etc., etc. Here is just an example of a Chinese brand, because as China being the biggest market of consumers of beauty supplements, they are very much innovative. So we thought this will just be a nice example so you can take a look at the products that they are introducing. And then again, when looking at the markets, we are seeing a similar trend to what I have mentioned in a slide ago about the age cohorts being the biggest groups of consumers of beauty supplements. All right, then, I think now we can talk about women's health. And here we've prepared an example of, on the left-hand side, you will see the graph of dietary supplements with women's health positioning. And we are seeing leading European countries. By leading European countries, we mean countries that saw the most dynamic growth when it comes to consumption of women's health supplements in 2024. So we all see all the countries like UK or Greece or Belgium, they also more than or higher than double-digit growth. And I think, again, no surprise when it comes to women's health supplements. The most important, or let's say the most popular, are still supplements related to menopausal health. But what we are seeing and what we also expect, this being a big opportunity, we are seeing more and more brands, again, maybe starting from a lower base, but we are seeing more and more brands focusing on different life stages of women's health, meaning menstruation or teenaging health, etc., etc. When it comes to pregnancy, this has always been there. So perhaps this is not such a big trend, but again, focusing on stages such as after menopausal health, because speaking of longevity, again, we all live longer, especially the females. So that is something that we believe also manufacturers and companies can or should focus on when planning their strategies when it comes to women supplements for women. And yeah, I think this one is also not a surprise when looking at tried and true ingredients that dominate women's health. Yeah, obviously multivitamins, everything that is related to iron, biotics, so probiotics, prebiotics, etc., etc. So that is kind of clear, but at the same time we are seeing also different supplements. Especially, we are talking a lot nowadays, you hear a lot about muscle mass and muscle health, and that is something that women, or people in general, but women also very much focus on, so that's why we are seeing quite an important increase in supplements such as protein, collagen, obviously that is something related to beauty health, so that is also an important factor. And now, we want to be fair, so we also want to talk about men's health and wellness. And here we also have a graph of consumer survey results. So what we are seeing when it comes to men's health and wellness space, we are seeing that there is a growing demand for supplements in general that promotes men's well-being. And this means a lot. So I think when we look at all the countries that we have listed here in Europe, is joint support, well, joint support is actually not mentioned, but cardiovascular health with the omegas is something that is important, I would say, for all of the countries, for all of the men in those countries. But at the same time, we are seeing collagen, and France and Germany are kind of outliers here. So it means that, men in those countries are very much interested in taking collagen supplements. And at the same time, we are also seeing, again, perhaps growing from a lower consumer base. I believe that is also related to the switch of tadalafil that happened a couple of years ago in some of the countries, some of the European countries. If I remember well, that was Poland, UK, and Norway. So that's also something that we believe kind of pushes the OTC space to talk more and to provide more opportunities or solutions for supplements that do actually help or do actually support men's sexual health or, exactly as mentioned here, supporting to maintain healthy testosterone levels. And exactly, there is here is another example when it comes to sexual wellness that we do believe it actually holds a significant potential when looking at the survey results and concerns among men in those regions. We are seeing that, concerns such as erective dysfunction or low libido happens in all of those markets, and that is something that also consumers in those markets are concerned for the future. So that is why we believe that there is a growing demand for supplements that actually support sexual health. And now we will move on to the last trend, the rise of novel and on-the-go formats. So again, this has also been very well discussed by Thomas earlier when he mentioned several examples of the patches and different formats. So obviously, again, we all know that, and we are seeing an increase in demand and increase also in the number of brands entering the space. that focus on different formats. So gummies and capsules, they've been there, but now we are seeing a bigger demand or bigger increase for supplements like either in drinkables or again some powders that can be dissolved, etc., etc. And then again, speaking from a consumer perspective and realizing that, yeah, obviously consumers know what they know, so they don't necessarily have the typical or the medical knowledge, but they either know what they read in either a scientific paper or simply on a forum, etc., etc. So there is also a bigger demand for example, dissolvables or the powder format, because first of all, it's trendy. Second of all, they believe it works better. So just speaking from the consumer perspective again, and I think this also is a continuation of very much of the trends that come from Asia. So again, looking at Korea, looking at Japan, looking at China, where the beauty shots, they've been there like, yeah, decades ago, while, and they are seeing the renaissance, or they are still in demand, while when it comes to regions such as Americas or Europe, they've been there around the last 10 years or so, and they are still on demand. Right, and here we see the examples of the global consumer product innovation when it comes to formats. Yeah, and we are seeing that gels or sachets, they are the formats that they've seen a huge increase in the last couple of years, and I think that is also sort of related to, well, the convergence of food and health, obviously, because I think speaking of beauty, health, and food, nowadays we cannot really speak about those three segments separately because they very much merge, they very much converge. So that is why, again, supplements in an eatable format are sort of a trend. And I think a nice example is also when we look back at sports nutrition and the years, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades ago, when they started becoming popular, like each person would just buy a powder. But yeah, the last few years have actually shown that, yeah, why should I get a powder where I can have like a drinkable, ready to drink, or again, speaking of weight management and meal replacement, again, on-the-go format. So the same we are seeing slowly happening in the dietary supplement space, and we believe that is actually the way to go forward. Yes, I will conclude because we don't have that much time. I just saw the time, Philip. So again, I think, and I will repeat after the previous speakers. So gut health, definitely something to watch, and considering the fact, like mentioned in the survey results, people are very much interested in, and that trend will stay. The influence on beauty and health, this will also continue. When it comes to women's and men's health, both, I believe the space is so huge and there is so much to do, especially targeting different cohorts, different age cohorts, different consumer groups, and different problems across the life stages of both men and women. And as for the formats, yeah, as mentioned, the convergence of food and health is going to continue playing the important role. So thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions or would like to chat, feel free to speak to Richard, my colleague, who is also here, or to myself. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. We have a bit of time for questions. So if there is any question for one of our participants, please raise your hand and we will send you a mic.
Hi, David Ridley from HW Insight. This is for Thomas. You said there's no growth in the OTC market currently, but then you said there will be some growth in the future. Could you clarify what you mean? with those two slightly contradictory statements, please?
It works. So I think we have to differentiate between volume growth and value growth significantly. Yeah, what I said is that there is no volume growth at the moment, but we'd see definitely a shift towards more innovative and more higher price solutions in the market, and this is driving value growth. So it's very much coming from innovation, a little bit also from inflation and price increases, quite frankly, but not so much what we've seen in the past. Yeah, it's very much innovation, and that consumers are moving away from, let's say, OTC solutions which have been cheaper and maybe with old, well-known substances into more modern, innovative solutions. Even if you look into, let's say, indications like allergy, you can see a new, let's say, number of molecules coming to the market. These are typically having higher prices than old, let's say, generation 1 cetirizine products, for example. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, Lawrence Redcar Pharmacy. I have a question to Magda, or maybe the others can answer too. You've talked about men's health and the recent switch of tadalafil and sildenafil in Poland, Norway, UK. In Germany, it has failed over the couple, I think they failed twice. Do you believe there will be another attempt soon in those in Germany, especially being the biggest country in the EU? And will it be successful?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. I was reading the news a couple of weeks ago. I know that it's in the pipeline and that the medical organization is actually discussing that, but as far as I know for now, there is no decision taken about switching the Viagra to the OTC medication. So I believe perhaps some how can I say, Poland is a neighbor of Germany, so I believe something like that may happen, although I am not sure about the regulation of purchasing that. Hard to say whether it will change. I know, having lived in Germany for some years, I know that when it comes to such important switches from RX to OTC, it might take some time. So, sorry, I really don't know. Maybe Thomas has anything to add.
Yeah, I think in the past, a lot of the growth that we have experienced in the OTC markets in Western Europe were driven by OTC switches, RX to OTC switches. This has definitely slowed down. Yeah, so the barriers from the authorities became higher. What we believe is more that innovation from, let's say, more vitamins, mineral supplements, and other non-registered products will drive the growth. Yeah, but we will not see the next Voltaren switch or something in the next 1 or 2 years, most probably, unfortunately.
Other questions? Time for a break. Thank you very much.